Pixar films are animated and take place in fictional worlds that often show similarities to our real world, adding non-human characters, magic and supernatural phenomena. In this essay, I will focus on how Pixar's animations represent the outside world and if they include a message on environmentalism. I will do this by looking in detail at the film WALL-E and its message on sustainability and consumerism. As already mentioned, Pixar settings seem to be inspired by life on planet Earth. They feature landscapes and cities, and many times they include references to the real world, for example an old Apple computer in Coco, or electronics in WALL-E. Sometimes this fictional universe seems to be very closely related to our world, but each film includes elements of supernatural power or science fiction. Nature plays an important role in numerous Pixar films. It may not always be the central theme, but is mentioned or pointed to in many different ways. For example, the producers of The Good Dinosaur paid special attention to creating beautiful and mystic landscapes, even trying to stick to actual natural monuments with new CGI techniques that make it look more realistic. The goal was to depict the beauty and also power of nature. In Finding Nemo, the fish escape humans multiple times, which could be a note on overfishing the oceans. Monsters, Inc. incorporates interesting thoughts on energy consumption, using the screaming of children to produce power. The children can be seen as a metaphor for oil and the Earth's natural resources, and how people exploit them. Further, the company in the film, namely Monsters, Inc., wants to drive consumption so there would be more need for production, and they would earn more money. As mentioned before, I'm going to focus on WALL-E, which takes place in the post-apocalyptic future, after the planet Earth has been abandoned by humans. This film, directed by Andrew Stanton, tells the story of a robot named WALL-E, which is short for Waste Allocation Load Lifter Earth Class. It is the year 2805, and he's the last Earthling left on a deserted, polluted planet. Humans left the Earth to live in spaceships 700 years ago, when the planet became inhabitable due to pollution and contamination. There are cities built entirely from waste, where no human life seems to be possible anymore. The first generation of people on starliners like the Axiom, where the story takes place, were promised they could return to the Earth once it's cleaned up by robots like WALL-E. But hundreds of years later, humans still live on spaceships and have become lazy and passive, spend their days sitting in big chairs, and have to learn how to walk again at the end of the film. At first, the message seems to be obvious. Pollution of the environment and consumerism will be the end of life, and humans fail to protect nature. WALL-E cleans up useless objects and collects them. Even he's driven by consumption to some extent. The mountains of waste entirely consist of now meaningless objects that once were worth money. Thus, money becomes garbage and material possessions do not mean anything. Being set in the future, the film helps the audience imagine what consequences of today's actions could be. The film makes it even harder for the audience to look at it objectively when featuring nostalgic items such as toys, old cassettes, and an iPod. The irony is that some of the garbage is actually considered nostalgic and causes heartwarming feelings. This is one aspect the film treats, but if we take a deeper look at what actually caused the rapid buildup of waste, it becomes clear that the average human alone is not at fault. If we assume that the story is set in an exact representation of our world, and the apocalypse takes place in the 22nd century, thus in the near future, it would be unrealistic to say that the entire planet could be buried in waste in such a short amount of time. Given the fact that there are landfills and people make money with waste disposal and recycling, this should not happen anytime soon. Therefore, someone must have stopped the disposal so the garbage would build up and humans were forced to leave. This points at a fictional company called By and Large, short B&L, the company that owns the spaceships where people live now.
up the mess while you're away.
This logo can be seen in various different scenes on all sorts of objects, confirming that B&L has taken over every aspect of human life. Everything on the spaceship is covered with B&L's logo. There's advertisement everywhere and people become reliant on B&L since there are no competitors. The people on the Axiom, however, enjoy the convenient and luxurious life where everything is done for them. Ironically, they even look like the audience in a cinema, sitting in comfortable chairs in front of a screen. B&L not only exists in WALL-E, it can also be found in numerous other Pixar films, for example in Toy Story on Buzz Lightyear's batteries, or on the racetrack in Cars. This explains that corporate associations that take over everything and drive consumerism are dangerous to the environment. In the end, mass production and capitalism cause destruction of nature. Therefore, B&L's spaceship Axiom becomes this film's antagonist, and instead of a human character, the villain is an institution. The real danger to the environment are large corporations and companies that determine capitalism and consumption. At the end of the day, the environment can only be protected when materialism and profit become less important. Even though Stanton claims the film has no real message, the main focus was on a love story between Wall-E and Eve. It provides interesting ideas concerning sustainability and protecting the environment. Large corporations and companies have the power to oppress environmentalism. It is not merely the consumer who harms nature with wasteful behavior. However, although there is a clear message underlying the story, the question remains whether Pixar stands behind it. Looking at merchandise sold for each film they produced, and product placements like Apple, Pixar itself tries to capitalize on products sold to the audience.
And race forward and backward with Space Adventure Wall! WALL-E Deluxe action figures!
This then puts us, the audience or consumers of Disney and Pixar productions, in the same position as the people on the Axiom. People who spent their money on the company and do not question what they do.